I think obviously the big story that everybody's talking about is what is the right word? Termination, mutual parting of the a-holes at Penn State, happy ending Valley. You knew this was coming, and we talked about this in the summer when James Franklin laid down the gauntlet and he talked about how we've got it all. We've got the new stadium, but we don't have an airport. I hate my life. When James Franklin was going all on that, I told you over the summer, the leash is getting shorter and shorter and shorter. Now, I had no idea that 2 weeks after taking Oregon to double overtime, that he was going to get run from Happy Ending Valley. But am I surprised? No, because the one thing that I can say about Pedophilia U, they want to win. They have spent money to win. They have great facilities. Those facilities are rapidly improving. And Jake, I think James Franklin brought this all on himself. Well, A, he's an average-ass football coach, but B, I think he talked far too much about the things he has and the things that are on the way at Penn State.
Yeah, I mean, I just think that there wasn't enough winning at the highest level, and I think that that's the clear messaging that the brass at Pedo U put out this weekend after letting him go was, hey, like, we're our track or our path and trajectory is all about winning at the highest level, and that's where we need to go. And it was interesting to see them put a lot of effort into saying, like, hey, he shepherded us from a really dark place back into a more productive place, and so like they were real keen on pointing that out and giving him his flowers there. But I think it's just it's a harsh reality of the coaching industry. It's nothing new to say that, hey, like coaches get hired to get fired, and that's the industry. We all know that. It just is part of the job. But I think with James Franklin, the hard part is that it also seemed very part of his industry that he lost to the best opposition on a pretty regular basis. And it's really difficult because, the culture there, like we've talked so much about how terrible things are and how, what they condone, what they do, the bad look that is Penn State. And I just think that, most of the time I would be saying something like, yeah, dude, like the guy gave it his best shot and it just wasn't good enough. But in this case, I can't really say that because I don't really feel bad. I think that you didn't win at the highest level. You cultured bad environment. Your culture sucked, generally speaking. And I don't even have to get into what went down in your prior role before Penn State.
Vandy, at Vanderbilt.
Who you are.
Yeah.
So I just think it's clear.
I think when you look at James Franklin, by the by, was James Franklin good for Penn State? I don't think there's any question. Was he an upgrade from a guy like Bill O'Brien, who was certainly an upgrade from Tom Bradley, who had the unfortunate job of replacing, one of the worst human beings we've ever known in Joe Paterno? Yeah. Was James Franklin a shepherd, a guy that brought Penn State into a new era? Absolutely. Did he do a good job? Absolutely. Should he have been fired? Absolutely. I am a guy that believes you are either going in the right direction or you should be fired. That's it. That's the beginning and the end in college football. And I look at James Franklin and everybody's going to say, well, Monty won 146 games. That's great, but he couldn't beat big teams. And how many times have I sat on this very show and told you Drew Aller is average-ass Aller? I think I have said that repeatedly for the last 2 years. That's not a guy that's going to win a championship. I just think it was time at Penn State to make this move. And I have a lot of respect, all of the Epstein Island stuff aside at Penn State. I have a lot of respect for how difficult it is to fire somebody of James Franklin's character. And when I say character, I don't mean, well, he's a good guy. What I mean is somebody of the stature, somebody of the prowess of James Franklin. He recruits really well. He wins a lot of games, not the biggest games, but the guy wins a lot of games. And we're now seeing this culture I always talk about. It's not good enough unless you're Kirby Smart, right? Unless you're winning national championships. It's not good enough. Unless you're Nick Saban, it's not good enough. And I just don't know how many more times we're going to see one of these average-ass coaches do something or not do enough and wind up getting himself fired, because we're in this era of college football where unless you win national championships 2 to 3 and 5 years, your job's not safe. And I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. Frankly, I have no idea. But what I do know is Penn State was always going to be third or fourth in the Big Ten. And that is not some small indictment. The Big Ten is not a deep league. Penn State's not a good football team when it comes to the Ohio States. Ohio State is significantly more talented and significantly, I think, better at X and O's. They are much better coached. They are much better fundamentally. And that's the bar in the Big Ten. As much as Michigan fan will hate that, I think Ohio State is the bar in the Big Ten right now.
Yeah, I mean, there's just no getting away from it. I mean, I think they got something, and we'll get into the AP today, I'm sure, but they got something like 53 first place votes or whatever it was. I think that Ohio State being the number one team in the country and the best team in the Big Ten is clearly not in dispute. I mean, I think that's the one thing in college football we can all agree on, but I think what's difficult is if you look at the timeline for James Franklin in this job, I take this back to the Notre Dame game in the CFP. I mean, I just think that it's just not good enough. You lost to a team that didn't really have an offense outside of the running game, and you couldn't figure it out. And I think once that happened, then there was so much pressure on you this year to go out and get results that anything less than that, anything less than getting to a national championship was not going to be good enough. And I think then it's like, okay, so we lose an OT to Oregon, and then we just go down a snowball with UCLA and Northwestern.
Oh, I think, but you understand that, right? I mean, this is the problem. If you are Indiana couldn't afford to lose the Oregon game. They didn't. But if they lose that game, there's a chance they lose 2-3 more this year, because it's really hard when your season ends. And when did Penn State's season end? Against Oregon. That was the game. And you blew that game and essentially watched your chances at the college football playoff or winning a national championship get significantly more difficult. And I think your kids are going to let down. Is Penn State better than Northwestern? Come on, what are we even talking about here? Of course they're better than Northwestern. Does that mean that James Franklin should keep his job because they let down? No, it doesn't. James Franklin is a good coach. He's certainly not an elite coach. He's not. Is he better than Kirk Cignetti? Not right now. He's certainly not Ryan Day. I look at Lincoln Riley and what Lincoln Riley's doing in this conference right now. I think Lincoln Riley's having a pretty good run at USC the last 18 months. They're significantly better. Although I again will tell you, I don't think much of Michigan. I think Michigan's one of the most poorly coached teams in the country. We saw that on full display in Los Angeles over the weekend, but Lincoln Riley's winning games. James Franklin is probably not a top 5 coach in this league right now. Dan Lanning or James Franklin? That's not even a conversation, dude.
Yeah, well, I think what's difficult is James turned himself into one of those guys where it's like, hey, we can get to the CFP, but we can't win anything. We can't do anything unless
he needed help last year to get there.
Oh, for sure. But then it's like, hey, it's SMU, Boise State, Notre Dame. I mean,
that's exactly right.
I mean, how do you not win a national championship? How are you not at least going to the game? How are you not, how are you not doing more with that? And so I think what's hard is that yeah, sure. Can he recruit? Yeah. I mean, I guess yeah, he got great talent there, but he didn't get the talent that he needed most, which was a quarterback that's capable of throwing you to a victory. And
that's exactly right.
And again, I'm not trying to rip this guy down, but his colors are very clear. He can recruit prolific defensive linemen, specifically defensive ends. I would say that he's pretty good in the back end of the secondary. I would say he's extremely mediocre at the quarterback position, and he's put a running back in the league here and there. That's what he's done. And You haven't won national championships. You're 4-22, I think it is now, against top 10 competition or whatever. 1 win against 3 wins against Michigan in your time. This is not good enough. And again, I can't believe I'm sitting here giving praise to this university, but it is the right move. It's whatever university should strive for as far as expectations and behavior, because you're exactly right. I mean, once you lost that game, your season ended. So, I think it's just, it was like, hey, we lost the Oregon game, and then the whole house just burned down because we lost to UCLA. Then Aller gets hurt. We lose to that team. It was just like, all right, cool. Let's just burn this thing to the ground and start over. I mean, it just makes sense.
Yeah, you absolutely. And I think James had a pretty good idea. And just talking to some people around college football, I think he knew once he lost the Oregon game, he was in trouble at the end of the year. But to watch this league spiral, and then you look at James Franklin on the field after this game.
After 22.
Just look how little emotion there is in it. Like, I mean, he's not angry. Look, I mean, there's just nothing there. He's not angry. He's not happy. He's not sad. I mean, that to me is that apathy? Is that
I think he knew he was
resignation?
done for. Yeah, he knew he was doomed. I think he was standing there under the guise of, hey, I'm making sure all my players can get off the field. But what he was really doing was, hey, I'm just taking it in because ultimately I know I'm going to get fired after this game. And because if you remember after the Oregon game, and also after the UCLA game, there was reporting of, hey, there was conversations held between Franklin and the brass, and he did his Monday availability, and he's still here. And so it's like, at the time, I don't think people realized that's what was going on. But obviously, hindsight's 2020, and now we can look back and say, yeah, that's probably what was going on there. He knew what it was.
I don't think he was getting fired in season because he lost to Oregon. I think this 2 in a row, I think the free fall, the lack of talent, honestly, I think people saw that Penn State could not make a tackle, could not be in the right place, could not execute a throw. Average ass Aller was regressing. I think you just saw a program that was lifeless, that was not pushing forward, that was you had a coach and a coaching staff where you spent a lot of money to get Jim Knowles. And the defense is much worse than it was. Now, you also lost one of your all-time performers, and totally understand that. But here's my question. And I think this is if you're a Penn State fan, this is the hardest part. This is the hardest part to answer. Can you get somebody to step up? Because this isn't Oak State, a job that, frankly, not many people are clamoring for. This isn't a job where who's the guy on the hot seat? We'll talk about Mike Norvell in a few minutes. Florida State will be filled the second it's open. Penn State fired James Franklin without a solution. And my question is, if you are Garrett Riley,
yes,
if you're one of the top offensive minds in the country, Florida State's open, Penn State's open.
There's no question you're going to Penn State.
No. Yeah, I think, dude.
Why would you go to the ACC when you can go to the Big Ten?
It's an easy path to the college football playoff right now. And Florida State they both have oodles of money, right? Penn State, does Penn State have resources? Yes, and a lot of them.
We've seen those used poorly over the years.
Yes, a hundo P. But if I am Garrett Riley, who I think is the best offensive mind available in college football, I'm taking the Florida State job. I think it's better recruiting. I think it is easier to get to the college football playoff. I think the fans are thirsty and hungry. Now, again, my belief is if we look at the jobs that could potentially be open, and I say to myself, okay, like Penn State versus North Carolina. Dude, Penn State is in a different zip code.
Not even in the same conversation.
Right? Penn State versus Wisconsin. Penn State significantly better. But here's where we get in trouble. Penn State or Florida.
That's a different conversation. I mean, I think
That's
that there's,
it's
I
the
think,
SEC.
I think casuals will say, "Oh, well, it's Penn State because it's the college football playoff." But I think the problem with that argument is that when you're comparing them to the SEC and specifically Florida, Florida is about as blue blood as it gets, bro. Florida is the swamp. Florida is that's a top job for the right guy. The problem is it's hard to find the right guy for that job who gets it, right? Like it's almost like you want a Lane Kiffin type personality, but you want like a prolific offensive mind to go with it. And
Yeah,
that's what's hard for Florida. So, I mean, I personally, I would probably take Florida over Penn State, but I think that that's
I
pretty
would agree with
level.
that.
That comes down to preferences, honestly.
Auburn, because I think Hugh Freeze is Hugh Freeze. There's not a. I don't think there's any guarantee that Hugh Freeze is keeping his job.
Yeah.
And I think I
the-
think Penn State's a better job than Auburn.
Yeah. So the problem is Penn State's definitely a higher profile job than Auburn, right? It's a bigger job. It's much more expectations. But the problem for Auburn is the same problem that Boise State has every year, right? Auburn's a second tier SEC team that is a season ruiner that typically has a moment or two every single year where it's like, holy crap, that was the Auburn game this year. But it's not, you're going to struggle to get the best of the best there because you have all those other teams in the SEC. Because if you can get them, the other teams in the SEC are definitely out to get them. That's the problem.
Yeah, and I think the hard part about these conversations is the best open job. Like this Mike Norvell conversation this weekend, you guys. I don't know how you. If you're Florida State, how are you not firing Mike Norvell? At the end of the season, he spent oodles of money. Now, Jake, what did you text me about James Franklin yesterday?
I don't remember. What did I say?
That he's making $20K a day.
Oh, yeah. 20 bands a day, dude.
Not
for
to
the
work.
next 6 years. Not
And
to work.
And what did I say to you?
They got money.
No, we need to get on that $20K a day.
Yeah,
not
I need
to
that
work
diet,
thing,
bro.
right? We all need that grind.
Yeah.
But if you're Florida State, you spent oodles of money replacing staff. You spent more money than at any time in the history of Florida State football on recruiting, and you're not better for it. You're not a better football team. That's what this comes down to, because you're not winning games. You're going to fire Mike Norvell. And I think Florida, if all things remain equal, I think it's Florida State 1, Florida 2, and I think Penn State 3. I think Florida and Florida State are significant. Just on access to athletes alone, I think Florida and Florida State are better jobs. And I think you can go into, like, Florida is really interesting. That defense is really good. That offense is horrendous. You can go, if you're, again, I'll just go to Garrett Riley. If you're Garrett Riley, you can go into Florida and turn that offense around like that. The day that Garrett Riley's the head coach at Florida, DJ Lagway is a significantly better and more capable quarterback.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. DJ Lagway, to me, is much like Bryce Underwood, right? I mean, this is a guy that needs a ton of development.
Yes.
But the raw intangibles that the guy has are Heisman caliber worthy. But you have to have someone that can mold him and teach him and allow him to grow. And, I think the other thing that needs to be talked about in this conversation as far as recruiting and level of program is the new transfer portal window, right? I mean, we have a situation here where this just changed. And I don't just mean that the transfer portal window is in January. What I mean is that now it's not a thing where once the coach is fired, you get to hop in the portal, right? You have to wait till the new coach is hired. Then you get to transfer. Then you get to hop in the portal. So I think there's this game, going on within the game of like, hey, we're Florida State, we're Florida, we're now competing for these candidates. What are we going to do to separate ourselves from each other to go out and get the best coach for us? That's what I think is a challenge right now.
Yeah, I also think it's very difficult And again, this is just my opinion. I think it is very difficult when you look at Florida State. Hell, I'll put Clemson in this conversation. Are there going to be 10 coaches fired at the D1 P4 level? I think there's legitimately a chance. If you look at in the list that I have working right now, I think you could very easily be looking at, and of course, quick aside note, it really drives me crazy that Apple and the notes function does not transfer from my phone to my computer. And I'm just
that's what fucking
right.
me to fuck off.
I spend all this time necking with my wife on the couch and making notes on my phone, watching plays, and I just threw that in there to be sensational.
Yeah, throwing it in there,
hot dog down the hallway and stuff. Here are the jobs I think will be open. We know Penn State already.
Yeah.
I think North Carolina's open. I think Wisconsin, Florida State, Florida. I think Auburn, there's a very good chance Auburn's open. And then you already have UCLA open. I think those are the...
You don't think Buddy's locked that up?
Who?
Jerry.
Jerry Neuheisel? No, with all due respect. I do not. I think it's far from locked up. I think it is far from locked up. I don't know. Yeah, I guess that's a different day. But I think those jobs are open. And if you look at the dearth of talent that's available, and just the names that I've heard repeatedly on the Penn State job, I was talking to a guy this morning about the Penn State job, a guy I trust very highly. I think when you're looking at the names on that list, honest to goodness, I think there's two. There's a 1A, a 1B, and a number 2. And I think it's Matt Rule at Nebraska is 1. I think Matt Campbell at Iowa State is 2. And I think that when you look at Manny Diaz at Duke, I think Campbell and Rule are 1 and 1A, and I think Manny Diaz at Duke is 3. I would not hire Manny Diaz as my next head coach.
No,
I don't. But I understand it. He's got massive ties. To Penn State.
Yeah,
obviously they won.
You don't fire James Franklin to hire a guy who's not qualified from a experience in college football standpoint.
Well, I mean, he did not have success at Miami, being fired at Miami. But then again, being fired at Miami, is that a badge of honor? Probably at this point. But I mean, he did finish in the top 25 before he got fired.
I listen. I think what's hard
13 and 6.
Yeah, I think what's difficult is that it's like you said. They hired James Franklin without a backup plan or a solution, and they did that intentionally, and I give him a lot of credit for that. But for me, Manny Diaz wouldn't even be on the list. He wouldn't even be a consideration, only because you can't. The next guy that takes over the Penn State football program, not only can it not be at risk, it can't be a lesser candidate than James Franklin, which is exactly what that would be. And
I don't know that I would agree with that. I think you have to, because you have to have experience in that part of the country. It is, and I don't know how many people give a rat's ass about this, but you have to be able to go in there and recruit large human beings, offensive linemen and defensive linemen, and you are going to need to get in the portal and get a quarterback right away, because average ass Aller now is out. He is done as a college quarterback. I think Matt Campbell and Matt Rule are the 1 and 1A there. I think those are the two names. Matt Rule, obviously, but I think Matt Campbell's a guy that you have to call. I don't believe for a second that Kirk Cignetti is leaving Indiana. And I don't know a soul that believes he is. And frankly, I don't know many people that are close to Kirk Cignetti, but honest to goodness, I can't find a person to tell me that Kirk Cignetti will even answer the phone for a new job this summer.
Yeah,
And
well, why
why
would he do
would
that
you?
when he just beat Oregon and can be a red ass the whole time?
Why would, and well, with all due respect, and play for a national championship, because that defense is legitimately good. There's just no doubt. But I mean, to me, this job has to go to a guy who's done it, who's been there, who's won, who knows how to build programs. And it's why Matt Rule is such a great fit, because I think he has very clearly injected talent into Nebraska. Now it's taking a longer arc than anybody would like, but they're much better this year than they were last year. And again, it's the Matt Rule year 3 thing that I told you is complete BS, because I don't think they're winning this year, but they're significantly better. And you can say what you want. What does he have? He's got a defense and he's got a quarterback. And I think he's got there's nobody, obviously, that's going to be closer to Pat Kraft than Matt Rule. I mean, that relationship is well documented now.
Yeah, I mean, I think that everyone just assumes that, and I'm not saying you do, but I think the masses assume that guys who, that this search is only applicable to guys who, are, appear to be available, like the Matt Rules of the world, or, any of the names that
Does
we've
Matt
dropped.
Rule appear to be available?
Yeah, because it's a bigger program than Nebraska. Yeah. I mean, he can sit up there all day and sing praises about Nebraska, but nobody believes that you wouldn't leave Nebraska to go to Penn State, right?
Yeah.
I mean that's just the reality of it, until someone else fills the job. But I don't know, man. Again, this is the age-old debate that we had about Bama before they went ahead and hired him, is like, who would you call? Who should you call? I mean, aren't you calling all the usual suspects, whether you think they'll say no or not? Aren't you calling Kirby, Dan?
Nope. No, I don't think.
How is this different?
Because I think, and I know most people will disagree with me on this, but I've talked to multiple sources today who have told me this job is not for everybody. It is not for everybody. That place, you have to go in there. Like a guy, for instance, if you think about Clark Lee at Vanderbilt is a really popular name in the coaching carousel. That job isn't fit for Clark Lee. That's just not his persona. That's not his, like Dan Mullen at UNLV, who I think somehow, I tweeted over the weekend, Dan Mullen's taken what Barry Odom did and taken it to another level. That's not the job for Dan Mullen. He's not a fit there. I think you have to be able to go in there. And you know what? I know that people are going to really get pissed on this show, because we have a lot of Ohio State fans. You know, the guy they have to talk to, they got to call Brian Hartline. They have to. And I know that name's been floated nationally, but I tweeted about this the other day. If you are going to fire your coach in the Big Ten and you don't call Brian Hartline, you should be fired yourself. I just think Brian Hartline has played in the big games. He has been a GA. He's been an analyst. He's now an offensive coordinator on a team that is as good as any offense in the country, with a freshman quarterback that's developing at a better rate than anybody Penn State's probably ever seen. Like, it's all happening. Now, is Ryan Day largely responsible for that? Yeah, but that doesn't mean that Brian Hartline's not the offensive coordinator and doesn't deserve respect. And I know it's not popular. I understand that. Brian Hartline's a guy that you have to call. There's just no way around that. And again, in Columbus, I'm sorry to tell you that, but that's a really good name, because there's not a living room in the Midwest and the Northeast that Brian Hartline can't walk into and get name on piece of paper from fat ass offensive or defensive linemen, because that's what they need. That's how you win and lose in this league. And the best have it. Look at what Michigan does not have right now. Michigan has really bad coaching, and they're not great up front. And I am telling you now, Brian Hartline's a guy who can get a job and make that happen. Now, is he your first choice? I have no idea. How many times you're going to go to the well at Ohio State if you're Penn State to hire one of their assistants? I have no idea.
It's a great point, man.
Right? But
great point.
All right, let's get into the comment section. Who would you hire at Penn State? Are you in the comment section? Are you surprised they pulled the trigger on James Franklin in season? I really was. I think, again, it is the right move. You can't lose back-to-back weeks to lesser opponents after losing to Oregon and think that you are going to – there's no way to get the water out of the boat at that point. Right?
It's a program-defining moment.
Yeah,
totally
in your
agree. Season. I mean, if you don't fire him, you're saying, yeah, we're going to be that program that, takes the Steelers approach to life of waiting for things to end with the season, and then we'll make all our moves in the offseason. But I just don't think you can afford to wait. I mean, you're talking about replacing your head coach and the whole staff, basically. I mean, at that point, recruiting's up in the air. I mean, you change head coaches, you're talking about an 18-month probably reboot. I mean, that takes time.
I just, we'll see, man. I think Penn State is in a really critical time in their program. And anytime you fire a guy like James Franklin on October 12th, you're sending a message, right? Like, that's what this is.
Mm-hmm.
You are trying to say, hey, we're not gonna be the same old disappointing, mediocre football team that has haunted this organization since the day James Franklin got the job. That means, and I would agree with you to that extent on Manny Diaz. I think that's just not going to placate the boosters. But if you hire Matt Campbell at Iowa State, I think that's a pretty good hire. If you hire Matt Rule, that's a pretty good hire, right? I mean, those are guys who have built programs with far fewer resources. Now, I also happen to believe that Matt Rule has one of the nicest budgets in the country. But you listen to Matt Rule. Does Matt Rule want the job?
I came here for two reasons. I love the community here and wanted to live here, and I love it here. And I wanted to rebuild Nebraska football. And, Troy and I understand the steps that you need to take to make us Big Ten champions and national champions. This place is elite. And I want to be a great father, and I want to be a great college football coach. And so, I'm not going to talk a lot about job openings when they come. Maybe it's been a while here, but this is what happens when you win. I've dealt with it. We've won at Temple, and I dealt with it all the time. I've dealt with Baylor. I'm not going to talk about those things ever. I'm not going to talk about my contract here. I'm going to talk about the team. But I absolutely love it here, and I want us to continue to take the steps needed for us to turn this thing into a beast. And players all across the country want to come here. We have the best facilities. We have elite fans, and I'm just looking at the future. So. But again, I love that place. I love Pat. I love James Franklin. Sad that came to an end. I wish him the absolute best, but I'm really happy here and excited to get going this week on Minnesota.
That's not a no.
Hey, bro,
right?
Way to coach speak the hell out of it. Thanks.
That's not a no. Coach speak, Jake. Coach speak is exactly the right phrase. Because that's what it is, right? That's not I love Nebraska and I am not leaving Nebraska. I'm not interviewing for other jobs. I love Nebraska. And again, he has a really good talent base. He's got fans that support him, and he does have elite facilities. Thank you, Trev Alberts. But he didn't say no. And if Penn State a better job than Nebraska?
Yes.
I think it's probably, not probably, it's a much higher profile job. And I think it's probably easier to win at Penn State than it is at Nebraska.
Mm-hmm.
So interesting. Have we changed our name now?
Now YouTube's doing the thing where it does. YouTube's having one of those days where it's showing everyone's OG name.
So I was locked out of my studio account yesterday. And I reached out to YouTube support, and they were telling me, oh, yeah, we're having a glitch, bro.
I don't know. Sorry, Monty.
Well, we'll see. Dana Marie says, "Hey fellas, 8 months so far. Thanks, James. We really appreciate the subscription." Dana, you never did she ever DM you?
Mm-mm.
No, she never DM'd.
Nope. Hell no, she didn't. Never got him.
JB, good to see you for $2. He's a B coach, better than average, just not elite. You mean Franklin? I would agree with that. Big Ponif, at this point, the NIL area is going to make it rain axes, dude. I think that's a really interesting way to put that. I think because when you're spending $30-40 million in player salaries, I've told you, I continue to hear. I was talking to a guy about Dan Mullen at UNLV today. And do you guys understand that UNLV is spending in the hundreds of millions of dollars right now? I mean, do you guys understand that? And the only reason they're not spending on par with P4s is because they don't have to pay for their stadium. They have they have a lease agreement with Allegiant. So they're spending, UNLV is spending on par with P4 programs, and we're seeing it on the field because that team is well coached, winning games, doing that thing, right? So I think you could be, this is a really good point. Good enough is going to get you fired, and failure ain't no one got time for that with money on the line for ADs. You're going to be lucky to make it 3 years. I think that's exactly right.
That's facts.
Says, I believe you're a Utah fan, Big Pond. A member for 33 effing months already, my guy. We got to talk about BYU Utah. Because what Bear Bachmeier did over the weekend, did anybody watch that game at 2 a.m. Eastern? Bear Bachmeier played some terrible football.
Ass.
Bear Bachmeier played some elite football. And this is what happens when you start a guy with no measurable experience. And you say, hey, why don't you put on number 47 and be the starting quarterback at BYU, my guy?
And while you're at it, Bear, because I know you've got the hair, here's a headband to look cool and let us reminisce about the MILF Hunter era at BYU. So you can look the part, but you're just not going to play the part some weeks. I hope you're okay with that, buddy.
And here's the problem. They don't need him to throw to win because the offensive line, they're putting their stank on dudes. And you know what is striking? And Aaron Roderick, who's the offensive coordinator at BYU. Aaron Roderick is a good coach. You want your quarterback to play better football, Aaron Roderick ain't your worst option. Now, you want play calling? Okay. But look how good Bear Bachmeier is in play action right now. Look how good he is in RPO. That tying touchdown with that is, Bear Bachmeier played some really ass football. I agree with Jake, but he also played some really good football, including fourth quarter and overtime. You better watch out, Jutta. Chewy Gonzalez, dude. What are we doing with the Dodgers? Shohei's going third in this series. And I'm supposed to believe that Yamamoto, what do you guys call him in LA? Yamamoto, son? I'm supposed to believe that Yamamoto, they do. I'm supposed to believe that Yamamoto is like, I believe they're going Snell, Yamamoto, and then Captain Cash Gambler, dude. And
Ipe's buddy.
I couldn't pull Ipe, buddy. Ipe's best friend. I'm really surprised Yamamoto's getting game 2.
Yeah,
I thought Shohei would get. I thought you'd come out with Shohei, but Snell's been really good. But how you're the pitching guru on the show? How surprised are you with that mix?
I mean, initially there's a little shock value to it, no doubt about it. But I think when you dig into it a little bit, it's respect, right? I mean, it's respect for the Brewers. It's respect for, how quickly that team can turn a game on its head offensively. And I think that, putting Ohtani in game 3 potentially could be a really smart move, because if you're somehow, I have no doubt that you will win one of the first 2 games, but let's say that you're 1-1.
I would agree.
You're 1-1, you split, you're 1-1 going to game 3, and you have Ohtani on the hill. You feel really good about that. You feel like for probably,
do?
Yeah. I think you feel like, all right, for 4 or 5 innings, I'd rather throw Ohtani than throw a bullpen game.
I think there is no question in my mind that you have to. Why can't stuff just work? So I had the Mariners Jays game on.
Right.
But obviously I'm doing the show. I'm not paying attention to it. I went to look at the Dodgers pitching rotation, and I looked over at my screen, and now it says I have to verify my location. For the 4th day in a row, I have to verify my location. And it makes me crazy. Anyway, yeah, I would rather be up 2-0 and lose game 3 than be 1-1 and have to have a must-winning game. But, I could be wrong. Big Pontiff for $5. Thank you, Brandon. Notre Dame fan, suffering Irish Catholic from Chicago. Utah is the local team for me. Question is, Dana Manti-Te'o's girlfriend. Now, see, now you're speaking my language. Now you're speaking my language here. And if one more person mocks me about CJ Carr for Heisman, bro, because we're playing USC this weekend. We're playing USC, and I am telling you, we lost the first 2 games because he wasn't ready. And now all the USC fans, yeah, you hated him anyway. You're goddamn right I did. You're right. Jeremy Bolton, the mayor of Montytown. What's up, McCluskey? Penn State hiring Lance Anderson from Utah Tech. BYU O-line is elite. Bear is sexy. Jake's red sweatshirt sucks. My Kia hasn't started on fire yet. Okay. Let's just encapsulate.
Just eviscerate the whole show, dude. Just cover everything in one comment.